Hey, this is Robbie Bear with the Familyguide Podcast presented by Movieguide. We are a podcast that talks about all sorts of different topics, from being a husband to being a dad to how to deal with your kids in media, how to be able to deal with so much craziness of the world we live in now, and how to walk through it with faith. And we love what we get to do. We love getting to talk through this journey with you. So I hope you will enjoy our conversations and always let us know in the comments if there's anything else you want to hear. Please click subscribe. There's so much big news, but I mean, one of the biggest news is obviously the Queen, you know?
Yeah, she got promoted.
Yeah, she did. Actually, that's a great way of saying it. She got promoted to heaven. She was an amazing lady of the Lord, I think.
Yeah, she was.
Like, she said some really incredible, like, Christian stuff.
Yeah.
And we awarded an episode of The Crown that had, like, the Billy Graham one.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah.
So powerful.
I never actually got to see that, but
oh my gosh, you gotta see it.
Was it amazing?
Yeah. I had to cut that scene for the Movieguide Awards, and it was like,
dude, Billy Graham was just a rock star. He, you know, I'm sure that the Queen and him are hanging out right now. You know what I mean? I mean, that's big news. And then King Charles III became in charge.
Yeah,
Charles in charge?
He's officially in charge now. Charles in charge, like your son.
Yes. Or there's a TV show, right? Charles in Charge. Oh. Did you ever see that?
No, I didn't see it.
Oh. I wonder what he's gonna do differently, because I don't think he's as faithful as she was. She was very much on faith.
Hasn't he already talked about some climate thing or something? It's like, I didn't think they had any.
Oh yeah, he's working with Johnny Ives, the guy from Apple.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, they're working together. They launched like a new logo and everything like that. Yeah, the Queen was just incredibly faithful. You know, it seems like she really loved God, and it's cool about it'd be even cooler to see more about her friendship with Billy Graham.
Yeah,
you know, because I mean, he was such a hero of the faith, and just to see them together would have been really cool. So I've got to watch The Crown.
You got to see that episode. I can't remember what season it was, but 7.
Now I think The Crown was like pretty good overall. I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
for the most part, I
think there was like something in there. I don't know, something that maybe gives you pause, but most of it was really good, I think.
Yeah, I haven't seen all of it, so I can't vouch for all of it. But the episode with Billy Graham,
I have not seen much of it. But the thing is that my wife loves the royals, so she follows. I was like, Taylor, we live in America. We fought them. No, I'm just kidding. We fought for freedom.
Did the wives of the founding fathers were like, we can't talk about the royal drama anymore? That's
right. They were like so mad about it. They're like, what? But yeah, so I don't know. So I think that this is a huge shift. I think a lot of people were like hoping he'd just abdicate and let it go down to the next thing in the mix.
Queen Meghan. That's what they want.
I think she like abdicated, right? I don't even think she's part of the royal family anymore.
Yeah, they were talking about how it's so difficult to buy a house, $10 million house in Montecito.
No, $14 million.
14.
They said it was extremely difficult. The struggles. If they couldn't afford the $14 million, and you're like, that is not relatable to anybody. Nobody finds that relatable. Like, it's hard, especially in like a recession. It's like, I do feel a little bit like she's kind of like the Lindsay Lohan of the royal family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it almost feels like she just wants to keep staying in like the limelight. But it's like, nobody cares. But who knows? I mean, the like British royal family is like a big deal. Though, like, people follow them all over the world.
It's insane.
I mean, because there's only like very few royals that like you follow. Like, I was reading something the other day about like, I guess if anyone's listening from the Netherlands, I'm sorry, but there was like a royal from the Netherlands. Like, there's still like a king of the Netherlands or something. And it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that. I didn't even know that existed. But like I heard that the royal families that people know are obviously like the British is like the highest, and then the Jordanian. It's like the British and like the Jordanian are like the most, and there's one other one that like are high on like what people actually follow, like what they're up to in kind of a gossip kind of way. You know?
I do feel like the rest of the world follows American politics even closer than Americans.
I know. You're
Americans
exactly right.
follow like the royals. And
yes, you're right. Actually, that's a great point. And the Thai. People like the Thai royal family. But there are a lot of royal families around. But the British are definitely like, it seems like the most followed. But But you're right. That's a good point. Whenever you go overseas, like everyone tells you everything. You're like, I didn't even know all those politicians were running. But like, I guess maybe that's like us with the Royals. I guess I don't follow them much, so I don't know that much. But I do know there was a show called The Crown. And I also loved that movie, Victoria, with Emily Blunt in it. I thought that was so good, you know?
I mean, the wives love those, like, British in those eras and everything.
Well, I feel like in a way, like there's the...
Pride and Prejudice and zombies didn't really catch on with my wife, but...
But there is like something about... Yeah, my wife will not watch anything with zombies. She's like, why are we... They're zombies. But, you know, I do think it's interesting about like different thing that kind of like soothes you in stress. And I think it's... I don't know if it's like... I don't know if it's like sex specific. So I don't know if it's actually women and men or whatever, or if it's just some people follow some stuff, some people don't. So who knows? But it's interesting because, like, you know, I remember walking in and, you know, we work with a lot of the major studios. And I remember sitting with one of the major studio heads and he was talking about like how important the Amish like movies were to them and the Amish TV shows, you know? And there's like a huge trend where people just like wanted to watch as much like Amish content as possible, you know?
Yeah.
And it felt like, in a way, like it was an escape for people. I think it was they said it was mostly female on that, but it was kind of like an escape of like, hey, it's simpler. Nothing else is like, I think you romanticize it. So it's like, oh, nothing else is expected of me except for this or whatever. But it's like, I mean, I'm sure it's really hard. No matter where you are, the grass is not greener. Yeah. But I feel like for dudes, it's like post-apocalyptic shows. You know what I mean? It's like, and I was telling my wife the other day, I was like kind of like royal, like she loves royal stuff, like you were talking about. Like she likes all of that royal, you know, like the Crown or Victoria or whatever. But I feel like that in a way is kind of relaxing. But for me, I was like, oh, I love those post-apocalyptic things. I'm just like, why would you like that? But I think it's kind of like the dude's Amish. You know, because like Amish, it's like, oh, it's very simple. Like post-apocalyptic, it's like, man, the dude has one job. Protect and save your family in a world where like everything else has fallen away. You're not like freaked out about anything. You're just freaked about crazy zombies trying to kill you, or like
basically the
nuclear
Amish
holocaust or whatever.
You just need to find food, cultivate food, keep your family safe.
Right.
It's the Amish.
I don't know, but it's also like maybe it's like a more dude version of it because it's like oh, you know, you get to. It's kind of like the mixture of it's mixture of like simplicity of life with like crazy military. You know, it's like, you know,
be
like,
a dude's dude.
Yeah, being a dude's dude. Like, where a dude is actually called to be a dude. You know, because like so much of society now is not very much like a dude called to be a dude.
Right.
You know?
It's so funny that they push that stereotype now that like, oh, everyone's the same. There is no like super masculine men anymore and all this stuff. And it's just like, guys, like the best-selling video game of all time is Call of Duty.
Yeah.
Call of Duty. These dudes want to be the super soldier.
I think that is a great point because I think like my wife does not understand video games. Mm-hmm. And obviously like my brother doesn't either. So like there are a lot of people who don't understand it. But I think like the thing about video games, which people don't understand, is it's pretty much like that call for like Dominion. It's like allows a dude to be a dude in like an epic world. And like if you think about like the top video games for so long, they were ones in which like, okay, it's like Halo. It's like one dude saves the world. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? From crazy aliens. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, there's so many where the guy had to save the world from zombies. It's it, like the virus. Like they're all of these are like, it's like it's these epic stories of you doing something incredible against all odds to like save the world. And I do think that like, it's interesting that they do so well from like a video game standpoint. And even if you look at like, the fantasy ones, like the ones like the swords and sandals kind of thing, all of those things are like you participating in the epic, you know? And I do feel like in a way, like so much of society has forgotten that and like that call on, you know, and I know that it's like not kosher to say anymore, but like the call particularly on dudes' lives to be a little more on the epic, you know what I mean? To like make a difference in the world in like that kind of epic way.
No, for sure.
And because it's so dogged on like, oh, masculinity at all, you've lost the opportunity to be like, no, like there are bad ways to do it, right? Yeah. Locker room talk is bad. Yeah. You know what I mean? But there are amazing ways to do it, you know? And I'm reading this book on Grant by Ron Chernow. He was the dude who wrote Hamilton, you know, that they made the musical about. He also wrote Titan about Rockefeller. But like Grant is like, he's just a dude's dude. He won, if you don't know, he's the Union general that won the Civil War. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't swear at all, which people were, because he was like very religious, like very Christian. Like he didn't swear like at all or anything like that, but he was still like a picture of like, hey, he's a dude, he's dirty, he's like trying to make his mark and his difference. And I think that like we've missed out on an opportunity, and I'm not like comparing it to swearing, but like I'm just saying that like we missed out on an opportunity that like you don't have to throw out the baby with the bathwater.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like you can call a dude to greatness and not like lose, like they can be like an awesome dad, man, like do epic things, like be noble in it. And like you don't lose.
Well, like those are the aspects of masculinity that I think are the most important. And in throwing the baby out with the bathwater, you're losing a lot of that.
Yeah.
You got like a lot of fatherless homes and a lot of things where these non-committal relationships, marriages that aren't staying together, stuff like that. It's like being a man means you are committed to your family, to your spouse. Like that's being a man. Needs to include all that. That
is a great point. And I read with my kids the code of a knight. Okay, so we just looked it up. You know, like, I mean, that stuff, like the chivalry code is like vilified nowadays, right? People are like, this is so horrible. We live in Southern California, so like people are probably even mad at, you know, you open the door for someone or whatever. But like the interesting thing is it's like, it's actually really awesome. Like if you read through it, it's like, I don't know how people couldn't get behind it, because it's like, man, like take care of people, like look after people, defend the weak, like all of those sort of things. It goes through like a lot of these things. And obviously like what you deem as weak is maybe where the controversy is, but like, it's just like a very ennobling thing, you know, and it's like a very beautiful thing. Yeah. And I think that you're right that like, man, we just forgot that. Like we've forgotten that as a society, the fact that it is good to call dudes higher. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's something that like dudes want. And if they're not going to find it in society, then they are going to do video games. Right. You know what I mean? Because like video games are still the one last thing in society that is like, it's like living Braveheart every day. You know what I mean? It's like the one thing where like they create brotherhood. You know what I mean? Like think about, I was talking to a guy the other day. He said his best friends are people that he plays whatever, Call of Duty or other things with. You know what I mean? It creates a brotherhood. It creates the epic. Yeah. Like, man, you're defending whoever, whatever against the onslaughts. Like it's always like these, like you play that incredible like World War II game. It's like, man, you are defending, you know,
you're part of
Allied forces
unit.
From like horrible stuff or whatever. And it's like all of these things, like they in the virtual world are calling to be higher. And there's a call in all of us to like do more. There is a call to the epic. Yeah. I think there is a call to the epic. Okay. And so I think that like, it's interesting. It'd be cool if like society just thought more about that. Like they've just really thrown out the baby with the bathwater and they've just wanted to like crush that. And I tell my kids all the time, like, man, to the epic. I call them to the epic, you know, like I tell them stories about being a knight or going on quest. And
I think that's huge.
Yeah.
I think also the dark side with it too is when men have to like, well, guys in general want to like seek out that stuff and they become obsessive on video games and stuff, and then they're becoming desensitized to the violence, right? And they take because it too far, and they're not getting fulfilled in day to day.
Because you miss it. It's like it's like the devil's so good at the mirage. You know what I mean? It's like almost there, but not. Yeah. And I feel like in a way the virtual world is almost there, but not. And so it sucks you away. But you know, one of the things that we were doing with my kids is I think I don't know if I mentioned this on one of these before, but like it was, so my son Charlie, you know this obviously, but when he was young, you know, he was kind of timid. You know, when he was like 2, he would look at the ocean and he would cry because it was too vast or whatever. You know, and so it was one of those things where like every day I started telling him these stories of Charlie the Brave. You know, and it started out of him doing like brave things at the like the big slide or whatever. And then it moved on to like doing epic things like fighting dragons. And so like every Saturday we do this thing called the Dragon Song, where like we play a song and we just talk about like my kids like slaying dragons and doing like crazy stuff.
That's awesome.
And the thing is that, so when my son was like 5 turning 6, he wakes up really early, like those little toddlers do, if you guys remember that. And we live in like a farm area, but he starts walking down the street of our street or whatever. And so one of our neighbors, everybody has that one neighbor, I'm going to change her name, Cindy H or whatever.
Karen. No.
Yeah, the one neighbor who just always wants to tell you things. And so she's like, your son is walking around at 6, like 5:30 in the morning, 6 or whatever. And we're just like, oh man. So we sit down, Charlie, and like, hey, what are you doing? And Charlie says, hey, I'm going on a quest. And so what I did is I was like, I didn't want to discourage that because I thought it was so awesome. And I just said, Charlie, every time you get up, you wake me up and I'll do it with you.
Yeah.
And it's been some really cool times where we've been able to do some like crazy stuff together. You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
On these journeys. And I just feel like even a little dude is called to do great things. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like, or all of them are called to epic things. I mean, even Nina and my girls, like they're also like, and
Absolutely.
I just feel like society, one, has de-emphasized the epic. I mean, you see that in almost every movie, right? Like every movie is like the anti-hero. It's like the person who's like struggling and barely, like even the superheroes, they want them to like look at Ted Lasso. Yeah. Like that was so darn sad. Like the first one was amazing. It was about a dude who was like positive, who changes a world that is negative just because he is so upbeat. Right? The first one was like really awesome. Like maybe too much swearing,
it's like refreshing,
but like really awesome
to see that too.
And then like the second one is like, oh, he has a dark past and he's considering suicide. And it's like, man, like
I just miss the point
they've
every
just
time.
removed out so often like that element of society. Like we've killed the epic, we've killed the noble, and it's just like you miss out on the longing heart of human beings, for that greater. And especially like our current society, like everything ebbs and flows. Okay. There were definitely times where like society maybe only focused on dudes. There are times like things ebb and flow, but in this current time, the scales have turned and it's just like almost for little dudes, it's like taking away that thought of like the epic, you know what I mean? And like calling to be better, like instead of calling them to be whatever, a thug or whatever, thug life, better to call them to be like a knight.
Well, that's why I think it's important to tell your kids these stories of great men and women through history. Like you got Davy Crockett and you got, you got Queen, the latest Queen, Elizabeth II.
Yeah.
Who's like a great example for them to look up to and know what like a noble life looks like.
Yeah.
And I feel like nowadays it's just like, I want to be an influencer and get attention and money.
Right.
It's like, well, great.
Because we've lost as we do a podcast. But I think we have lost that for sure. And it's sad. And I'm hoping that it lives back. But you're right about like, I do think that's the power of story. Like the power of story to tell people. And the beauty about history is that it lets someone from outside your time speak to you. Do you know what I mean? Like that's what's so powerful because like every season of the world, people struggle through different sins. Right. You know what I mean? And we're struggling through a different sin this time than what people struggled in the 1800s, than what people struggled in the 1500s, what people struggled in the 1200s. And so that's why, you read Augustine or you read this. There are similarities of like pain, but like they get to speak to our lives from outside of our lives. Mm-hmm. And I think that is super powerful to have people kind of read stories of like people who have made it. And I think it's really cool. Like I don't know if y'all have done the Little House on the Prairie stuff. Like that stuff is so powerful. We went through Farmer Boy. Have you read that? That's the dude one. So that's the one about the husband that she marries.
Ah, okay.
And it's just, man, when you, and then we're doing this, we're reading this other book about a life as a rancher in Colorado. Like, and just like, it's like a family of like 5 or something, but it's just like, man, frontiers people, those people were hardcore.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they they had to go through so much, like, and you see about it, and it's just like, you realize, like, everybody goes through pain, but it's like a very different, like, we are protected in general from death.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we are protected from, like, so many of these, like, hardships that they had to struggle with every day just to survive, you know? And it kind of gives you context, like what you're saying, like, just context to my kids of, like, oh, wow. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't know about their food. Like, they didn't know about how to stay warm. Like, there's so many things that they had to figure out just as a family by themselves.
Yeah.
And you can tell that frontier lifestyle, like, how it literally, like, it shaped America, you know?
And they're going out into the unknown with the whole family, you know, bringing them along.
Right.
We're going to build the life we want ourselves. They got to do everything themselves.
Right.
I mean, you got to build your house, everything.
Yeah. And nobody's there to help them.
And no one's there.
And it's not like they're mean.
can't
Like, their
Google
neighbors were so kind, but it's just like they're miles and miles away too.
But I mean, like,
You know?
someone gets sick, you can't be going on WebMD and figuring out, or
Right.
Teledoc.
Or like you hurt your arm or something, like you still have to wake up tomorrow and build. Like,
You got to
your
feed those
warm-
animals.
You still
gotta-
got to feed the animals. If you don't do that stuff, you don't make it. And it's just like, wow, like, what an incredible thing, you know? And I do feel like that's a good parenting lesson.
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
and not that we have to go into like the wilderness and have nothing, but we live in a great age. But like, in the sense of, like, so many parents now, like, they just want to make everything about their kids' lives easy.
Easier, right?
You know what I mean? It's like, oh my gosh, if they can't open the pretzel bag, you want to open it for them. It's like, no, like, it's valuable for them to learn how to open the pretzel bag.
There was a great quote. I think it was a veteran who said it on a podcast somewhere else I heard, so I can't claim this. But he said a really important thing is to teach them how to do dangerous things carefully.
Wow.
So they can learn how to have, self-control, and how to, have, the ability to do these things on their own without getting hurt. And I think a big part of that too is like with like driving or anything else like that as you grow up, it's a dangerous thing to do, but if you're doing it carefully, you're okay.
Yeah. And I think it's okay to just let people figure stuff out. I just feel like we live in an age too where, like, it's like, I think it used to be like the helicopter parent, but now it kind of feels like the bubble wrap parent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh my gosh, they just want to do everything for their kids. And it's just like, it's okay. Like if your kid is bored, okay, my wife is studying, she's getting a PhD in education. Like, it's actually good for their mental development for them to be bored, because it's good for them to be able to sit there and figure out how to entertain themselves. Like, you do not have to put a screen in front of them. It is good for them to figure out how to deal with boredom. It's actually even good for their brain. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Like, it is okay to, like, have silence. Like, it is okay for, like, those different elements. Like, you don't have to, like, it's okay, like, tell them to wash their hands, and then they have to figure out that they need a step stool to get up to the thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't have to do everything for them. And I do feel like in our current society, it's almost like we want to do every element for them. And so, like, my wife for a little while ran like a cottage school, and it was just so interesting, like, how much the parents wanted to do for them. And it's just like, no, like, the point is, it's good for them to slowly figure stuff out. Like, it's good for their development, it's good for their brain, and it's good for us, like, to know that too, you know? And so I think that it's just like such an interesting age and time that we live in. But I think that cool thing about reading in history, like you said, is it tells us things from the past that we need to know. But the other thing is, it just gives us that context of like, man, those kids are capable of insane stuff. Like, kids are capable of so much. We literally ask almost nothing of them now. Like, they are capable of a lot.
Yeah.
Like the frontier kids, man, those kids, even at a young age, like, they knew how to survive.
Amazing.
You know what I mean? And like, we forget that. Like, they're smart kids. Like, it's okay. Like, let them figure it out,
Davy Crockett's dad sent him out with one bullet, and he said, "You got to go get your own dinner." And if he missed, no dinner.
Wow,
So
that's crazy.
He became the greatest, like, sharpshooter almost in history.
Wow, I never knew that.
That's probably a little extreme.
Yeah, that might be a little extreme, but
It's a
you know what?
little
That's actually so cool.
But that's
I don't
how
know
he
much
became
about
such a good shooter.
Davy Crockett. Now I need to read that. I think he died in the Alamo, right, or no?
Did he die? I can't remember.
I don't remember.
I know he was there at the last stand, but
Yeah, but I will definitely read into that. And let us know if there's anything else you want us to talk to about in the comments. We love talking with each other about all sorts of different things, and we would love to cover any topic that you want to be able to talk to. We thank you so much for all of you who listen on a regular basis, and we look forward to next week.